Hey everybody, how we doing? Welcome to Keeping It Spiritually Simple, and I'm your host Sandra, and today I have a lovely guest, Heidi Popp. And Heidi and I actually met on Facebook, and we were friends on Facebook, and I'd see stuff about her, she'd see stuff about me, but it wasn't until we were going to be on somebody else's show separately that our names were mentioned to each other, and we're like, yeah, I know her, like that's familiar. And so we connected via the telephone, and in our chit-chatting we thought, well, hey, why not, let's jump on here and let's just do a little show. So welcome, Heidi Popp.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I
So
enjoy watching your channel. I enjoy watching the high vibes you give off, and you help people bring it back to one. Center
oh, thank
themselves.
you. Thank you. Yeah, there's everything's always so impromptu and off script. It's like um I never quite know what's ever going to come out of my mouth because it's not always, my words that are being used through the heart. And so sometimes I will put videos out and I'm like, I have no idea what I said, and I never go back and watch them. So it's a good thing, I guess. Because then I would critique, oh, I think there was pepper in my teeth or my hair was sticking up, something, you know. I just
Yep.
can't get that anal retentive about it, and nor am I experienced on editing. And we were just having this conversation before record because we're both learning this side of electronics, and it just, I implode. Like I go from 0 to 100 like that when it comes to electronics and not understanding them.
Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, I'm like, is this Atlantis or what is this that made me so like kryptonite? I'm repulsed almost by some tech stuff. And it doesn't like me either. When I started vlogging, I would get these glitches and matrixy stuff happening. And it was only a recent podcast I went on, I believe Flying Chariots the Rise, that one of the podcasts, the host said, I like your Yeti phone, but you're speaking into it incorrectly. I was like, I've had this 3 years. What are you talking about? And he's a sound fella. And I just really appreciated him. Just there you go. And now I need the phone. But yeah, it's like compressor and these things. And I'm like, oh, we can help each other. But I come from that world of sound techs and things, and it just never dawned on me. I thought you just plug it in and go.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. So I just moved it closer just in case. It's becoming my friend. I'm like,
Yeah,
hello.
I feel so
Can you
close
hear
to it
me?
now.
Yes. So I think, people who have followed you, they know that you worked on movie sets, as a snack girl, and have found your niches in many different ways. And then you got some education for teaching. And you also do work at your kids' community, learning community. Um, and so is there anything else maybe this audience might like to know about you, Miss Heidi?
Well, I think what needs to be said, especially in these days of dark versus light, is I'm in California, I'm in Los Angeles, and we've been navigating the dark for some time. And it really takes anchoring in and amplifying. And I've been dodging and weaving medical choice and mandates way before 2020, 2021. Thanks to my kids, who are a big part of my awakening. I've been navigating the school systems and the avoidance of them for quite some time. And I've been building something new and finding the others. And we are starting to, well, not starting to, we've been walking the walk and talking the talk. And I think, oh, that's what I can contribute. That's my mission. I can show and show people how it can be done because we've been doing it. So the fear that comes with all of these changes and the dark versus light and agendas and everything that's been slowly getting exposed as the veil is thinning, we're kind of cheerleading and being like, it's going to be okay. It can be okay. And there are ways of doing things. And we're just trying to now navigate and show people how that's done. just by, not that we know anything more than anybody else, but we have taken steps, somewhat before people as of late, as of 2020, when schools shut down. They're all scrambling now. I'm like, I got you. I did that in 2015. Let me show you some steps you can take. So it's been very interesting as of late. Our communities are growing by the hour. And I'm noticing people are dropping the fear and the fear porn, and they're leading more towards solutions. So it's a solution-based lifestyle I like to live.
Yeah. And I think there's many of us that came in getting pre-prepped for a lot of things. Like, why am I experiencing that? I don't understand why I'm experiencing that. And then a couple years later, like, now I know why I experienced that, so that I can step up to the front lines and help out with this, because it's new to them, but I'm experienced at it, even if it was unpleasant.
Yes, and often very lonely. Incredibly lonely at the start. You just think the world's falling, caving in, and you're alone.
Yeah.
Then you realize you're not, and it gets easier. It does get better. So it was a difficult journey, but if I can navigate through all that, sometimes on my own, then we can do all this stuff today. We got this.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the way I grew up, I was in grammar school in the 60s. And so, my mother had 5 children. So, we knew the basic rules and how to fall in the pecking order and how to fall in line. However, there was much that we needed to solve and resolve within ourselves and within the clan of the house, right? Before we could take that out into the school systems, into our sports and so on. We really had to learn by, banging our heads, knocking our knees, scraping things up. So we learned by physical example of how to just navigate a little bit better, I think, which is what brings us to being the adult, is we're now learning to set a better field for our children to play in. And that's nothing new. Every generation does that. Every generation that comes along wants the next generation to be better. But when we get caught up in all this indoctrination and programming, we're now seeing it didn't really work for us, but we navigated through it. But now, how do we make it so it's less scrapes and bumps for the next cycle of children that are coming through?
That's it. And we have to be cognizant of the type of children coming through now. We've been flooded with starseeds for quite some time, but we have an opportunity. If we at one point have seen this doomsday timeline, what better thing to be a solution and help assist the children into being their brightest, best light they can to change that doomsday timeline? It won't exist if we take care of our kids today, give them the tools, we empower them, we trust spirit. Yeah, we can literally. So a lot of the agenda talk and the things that go dark is about what could be or what ifs. So you're just creating those things then. So what if we flip the switch and, well, it could also be this way, and it starts with bettering our children. So that's kind of the mission as of late, really paying attention to the kids.
Yeah, I think, well, see, the way my spirit has shown me is that the children that are here now and that are coming in with more awareness, because the obstacle courses have been cleared for them and it's safe for them to work with the energies in which they come in. I think you probably already came in with them. I know I came in with them very aware and acutely aware of the sensory systems and the empathicness, and having to field a lot through that sensory system and then still stay grounded. But coming forward now, grazing and clearing the way so these kids have a better fighting chance of being able to share more information with the world, with less thumbs and people holding them down and go over here, go over there, all these misconstrued directions that I personally ever had to deal with. I'm sure you did too. But the ones that are coming in now, for example, I've heard you say, your children are what were the biggest catalyst to bring you into where you are now. And I know in 92, when I was pregnant with my second, it was a complete heart opening awakening. And, she could talk to the other side before she could talk regular English, right? And so I already had an idea of that. So in silence in the home, we could dialogue a little bit with it, or I could at least be of supportive energy of that. Later, of course, the indigos, which were then believed to have, above and beyond traits, supernatural abilities, different in belief systems and so on, which is exactly what the starseeds are. We're just changing their name. Okay. And I know for me, I was, if you want to label it, early indigo. But with her coming along and having so much experience with her, it was like rebirthing myself. It was like looking at myself and being able to be more gentle with this being that was me, right? It was my own DNA, but also just I looked at her like she was me, and was like, how could I mother her differently than I was mothered, so that I didn't feel like an outsider, right?
Yeah.
And so many of us have had children come through our lives that have been the biggest wake up catalyst to. And then, of course, no matter what we do, we want our life for our children and their friends and family and so on to be so much better, which blankets the whole world, right? And
Mhm.
no more righteous anger comes out of bitterness of wanting to protect the children. And righteous anger has a completely different vibrational frequency to it.
Oh my goodness. It completely does. And I think what you're speaking of too, like the medical choice thing, just brought the beast out of me. I was flailing pitchforks and I was angry. And all that did was get me sick. Like I became weak. I was weaker the louder and stronger I got about it all. And I realized, well, this vibration isn't serving a purpose. Like this isn't working. And then I realized the solutions. I had to start figuring out what I was going to do to assist this. I was trying to wake everybody up to these mandates that were happening under their noses, and it was just getting furious. And then I'm like, oh, I can seed the population, but I should still be looking for the right way to go now, paving the new way. And because this just getting angry about it, I noticed no matter how many people showed up on City Hall steps, no matter how many mothers shared their stories of painful journeys they've taken in the medical community, they're not listening to us. They're going ahead with their stuff. So we literally had to start over and start something positive, because that loosh, that low frequency of anger and fear and panic and anxiety and worry was doing nothing for them. It just made my kids freak out. So I literally had to watch them and then pivot and go, okay, time to pull up my bootstraps and figure this out and show them it can be done, because that's what I think I was here for, to do. And that medical thing slammed into my life when my daughter, my first, was born, because right away she was getting inundated with these, well, now you got to do this, and now you got to do that. And I'm like, no, I don't. I have a choice. I'm sovereign civilian of free will. Like, so is she. So it started rough and it started angry. And then I flipped it and I made progress. As soon as I flipped that frequency and raised it up and chose everything out of a solution base for the betterment of us, everything started moving smoother, and doors were opening, and health was improving, and hearts were fuller. So the true alchemy and manifestation of a positive timeline it happens with the second you change your thought and your perspective about it. It's either doomsday or it's solution.
Excellent points. And we already know how our nervous systems were growing up and how we had to learn to it was no fun, I'm gonna tell you. But I learned a lot, and I can't change that for myself. So I learned to harness it and make it superpower, right? And so with these kids coming in, they're reading not just their DNA parents, or if you're adopted, doesn't matter. It's still the same energetics, because there's a reason why these children are under your roof, right? And, we're here not to own them. We're here as carriers of their soul, guardians of their soul. We're here to foster them. So, we have to protect them through our own experiences, but they're reading our energy like this static clingboard, and then they're picking it up. And, I used to equate it. I became an infant massage instructor back in like 95, just before I entered massage school. And when we used to teach the infant massage thing, they'd say, Sandy, what do I do about this or that? And I said, well, and energy was not talked about much back then. Okay. And so I would say, well, pay attention to how your energy is. They're like, what? And I said, well, for example, how you have date night with your husband and the babysitter's coming, and you fed and you've burped your child and you're ready to go out. And all of a sudden they're going to get real fussy. And that's the time you're going to put them over your shoulder and they're going to spit up on your outfit. But they didn't do that the night before. They didn't do that a few hours earlier. They didn't do that last week. They waited till the moment you were going to leave. And it's because they were reading your energy of nervousness about leaving them. So if you can change your energy as if it was a night where you're not going anywhere, everything's a-okay, and just play with that and see how that works. Just like the kids know the bewitching hour. Babies always will start fussy between 5 and 7. Why? It's when husband's coming home from work. It's when you're trying to get dinner done. It's when maybe another child is coming home. That's when everything goes insane. So these kids are coming in with an acute sensitivity to the energetics around them. And you have an opportunity as a parent, grandparent, sister, aunt, uncle, whatever, is to help calm that. So that righteous anger, you're right, it has a specific place to be, but we have to learn to play our instrument so it has a little more smoothness and less hair pulling.
That's it. My daughter's 12. She's turning 13 this summer, and we have had a long journey of regulating her nervous system. And a lot of it became unhinged and fritzed out when I was panicking back in the day, thinking I'm pitchfork, paving the way and fighting a good fight. But she's just like, it did a disservice. Here I'm thinking I'm helping. I'm gonna wake everybody. No, but I didn't turn around and look at my little girl. What's happening to her? And she was feeding off of all of my energy, all the highs and lows. So there's even been apologies lately where I have humbled myself and said, I'm sorry for the journey. I was angry. I'll talk about the frequencies. I'll talk about the loosh and the energies and how that affects others when you go in a room. And then we've talked about when do you actually feel received or comfort, or what kind of energy do you prefer to be around? And they know the difference, darks and lights, and the loosh and the not loosh, and the positive energy and the low energy. And I had a chunk of time where it was nothing but dark, and they were the casualties of that energy because they were the closest to me and they are part of me. So I learned the hard way a lot of things. But for that, everyone says, would you do anything different? I don't know if I would, because the pattern of how I've been doing. Yeah, that's that's chicken and an
Coulda,
egg.
shoulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
The
But
what if.
I want to bring up something that you just said that you didn't realize, with her current nervous system, the way it is, stems back from so much of your reactionary wanting to protect. And of course, our children don't have that ability to reason and understand why something's happening. They live in that current moment. And so for you to recognize that something you may have done a few years ago or back whatever in her lifetime is affecting her now is huge. I still do it today. I have to first forgive myself and then ask, explain and ask for forgiveness on the ways that, maybe I've handled things, not understanding or not having anyone on my team to help me understand something that seemed very foreign and also in my decade was sort of hidden, wasn't really talked about. So what we do today affects our tomorrow, and it's affecting these kids. So the more work that we can do on our individual self and our column of light is critically important to filter through that energy and clean it out, because we're also helping to clean out the lineages before, during, and coming from us.
Yep, that's it. Being transparent in that sense and humble.
Yes,
Very
yes,
humbling.
yes. And I know that you homeschool your kids. They also go to a learning center for a lot of things. And there's a lot of parents that wish they could do that if they understood it better. And because most of them have to work, they've got to send their kids to the public school system. They don't realize, or a private school system. I've done both. Can't say one was better than the other at all, because each child is different in these environments. And of course, the errors are different, meaning timelines are different. But being able to have that opportunity to do that with your children and be a teacher at the school, I mean, I have to applaud you, Heidi. That's huge.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I thank 2020 for that. It pulled me out of an old industry that no longer served a purpose, and I continued even in that industry to be service to others. But in hindsight, it wasn't a balanced energy exchange, and I got to focus on my kids, which is why I was working so hard in that other industry. I never saw them as much, but everything was about them. Yet I wasn't with them. In hindsight, it doesn't make sense. So I got to focus on them. And as far as the homeschool route, that's really when it started, because we were in a parent run, but a small private little Waldorf school. And unfortunately, we did not go back there when they reopened because they fell for the fear. So I was like, this isn't our choice anymore. I wound up deschooling for a year, our first year, because I was educated as early childhood and my children were in the grades. So I was like, I can teach you the finger plays, but not quite how to spell them. But we also were getting used to each other, being around each other for 24/7 again, and just falling into, they had mom at home and I had them. And it was a really loving, beautiful year, a lot of socialization too. But I was like, we got to work on this education part, the academics part. So I wound up forming a pod in my backyard, and I hired out an educator, because to me, that was too overwhelming. I did not know how to put a program together. And we found two amazing educators from our old center, our school, that walked away as well. And it was a really lovely program. We considered them our little Jedis. We followed some Steiner stuff, but we did work on Qigong and the metaphysics of it all. And that was really beautiful. But it did not grow the way we had hoped it would. And we were craving that big classroom. We were just craving to get away from home. My kids alone, it was great that I was offering this to others, but we didn't get to leave. So we're like, we want to go somewhere and imprint our energy somewhere else. So word of mouth, because that's what it took, because it was kind of it is a hidden gem, this learning center. Word of mouth came around to me about this place with incredible property. Just the layout alone is tranquil, and there's it bellies up to a farm with animals that they can go right up to, and trees everywhere, and the classroom setting. And we found that, and we enrolled, and we started fall of, gosh, where are we now? Going into 2022. So last year was their first full year there. And it was magical. All I knew is we only went 3 days a week, and we still do, but they can't wait to go back, and they get bummed when they leave. That is a sign of an amazing place. And all the children, it's this very spirited place, and it is a homeschool learning center. So you get all these children from these different walks of life, but they're there for the right reason. All these parents want the mind, body, will of the child to be intact and to be a bright light. And so we're kind of all like migrating to this safe space. And trying to manifest the next step, which would be high school. It only goes till 8th grade. So when I was given the opportunity to assist, I jumped in. I was like, you know what? This is tying all my old loves together. I'll be back in the classroom where I do resonate deeply with children. I always have. I've always worked with them in some capacity. And again, my kids did not shy away from it. They were honored. Their chest went out a little more when they knew mom was there. It's like they're proud. So I'm like, this is a win-win for everybody. So our next step is manifesting the next step. And because the founders of the center, they founded it 6 years ago. So their children are coming up to graduation. So we're all like, and it's not quite a space where we can acquire more rooms and grow. We possibly won't be able to grow there physically. But this is what leads me to the incredible introduction you gave to me with our friend Nancy, and on the East Coast as well. And she's with the Learning Center International, the Learning Community International. Mm-hmm. And we had an incredible meeting, and full of hope, because she's basically lining us up with our vision of creating something new, and it will be accredited. It will come across on transcripts. Like, it's not so far out of reach to do something different. And I'm enamored. It's still like in the blooming phase. So I'm not sure what the next steps will be, but I really thank you for that introduction. This was so timely.
You're most welcome. They say I'm a networker by nature. So they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. I know some whats, but I know more who's. And my thing is always to connect people. And then I just bow out. Nancy's awesome. I mean, with the homeschooling program and the things that she can introduce you to, you don't have to do a GED. You get a diploma. So there's so much more coming out about homeschooling and opportunities and learning communities and learning centers that can be done. So I'm glad that connection worked well for you, and let's just see it blossom and grow. I look forward to that. But our children need alternatives. I don't foresee in my own visions of the public school system crumbling. I see it changing a lot, because 30 years ago, all you needed was a 2-year teaching certificate. Then it went to a bachelor's, then it went to a master's, and some of it's double masters. I know for me in the 90s, when I learned Reiki, Sikkim, and Sikkim, I learned it from a shaman woman, but by day, she was head of the Department of Early Child Development for Montgomery County, Maryland. So by day, she was in the system, and by evenings and weekends, she was all into the healing work. And now that she's retired, she's an acupuncturist, which was her passion. So she got her 3rd master's in acupuncture, and she specializes in sacred geometry. So there's a lot of teachers in these schools that didn't go into this to be caught up in what's happening politically to all of these schools, which is what's having more parents wake up and say, this isn't for me. What can I do? What changes can I make? And then watching what you've done with your children is you've walked your walk, you've put yourself out there by creating something in your backyard, to now being a part of this learning community and learning center, and then actually going there 3 days a week. I mean, that is awesome. And that's such an example to other people who say, I don't think I can do this. I don't know how to do this. What do I do? Right? Mm-hmm. So they can talk to you. They can talk to the learning community international, Nancy. They can talk to a lot of people who are out here doing this.
And I think that was the biggest, it was a fear for me. It was the fear of the unknown. And I was like, well, I can't, And I'm like, who better to work with kids than a mom? So, and a mom who's there for the betterment of the kids. It's not about state tests and funding and, sitting in a box and sit in their desk and work for the man. This is a center that is looking for the children's heart song and then amplifying it, finding what makes their soul sing and then shaping their day activities around that. And I'm like, there's our wave of the future, mentorships and skill sets and And everybody's got those. So if for the intimidation of being a homeschool educator, it's like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't either, but I'm in it. And just my presence alone is helpful. And there are lead educators that can put a curriculum together, that can hold it down, or can, which is the hardest part, I think, deal and communicate with all the different parents because you're dealing with such different mindsets. These lead teachers are great with that. I'm assisting. So I get to watch and observe and hold the light and balance it, as well as when I feel strong and empowered, I can assert myself where it's needed. Do I see myself eventually leading a class? Not yet. Because the assists are, I have that energy that can bounce. I jump in all the classrooms wherever I'm needed. I can jump in because that's my speedy, that's my history, that's my skill set. So that's a lead for me. That is a lead position to be able to do that. So it's a community. It's community education. It's not following a blueprint. It's creating it as we go. And like just for instance, we've had some crazy different weather out here in LA. It snowed one day at the center, which was beautiful because we were outside practicing this Norse mythology play. It was like perfect Viking weather. But we go with it. We go with the flow. We see a gorgeous day. We take an extra 20 minutes outside because the kids are just all in the trees playing. It's like, we're not going to stop this right now. We do, we pivot all day long, depending on all of our energies. And what often happens is we all fall in sync. We don't fall in line. We fall in sync, and it's harmonious. And that is such an honor to be around. It's such an honor. And you see these little geniuses in the works, as well as they humble me every day and teach me something every day. But the old way of thinking is being overwhelmed and scared of something new. And I think the New Earth paradigm is showing you that we're all co-creators. We're all creator beings. And this is paramount right now, to develop these programs for these kids to light them up, to activate them. And I think that's, if we just focus the attention on the long game, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And what we're trying to do with this, I think everybody has something they can contribute to this. And that's why the hope even of talking with Nancy with the high school, I'm like, I don't even envision the one grades one teacher. It's mentors, and it's a bunch of them, and it's skills, and it's just exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and I love your point there about falling in sync, because smaller groups can do that when they have the guardianship of parents that can step back a little bit and allow them to shape themselves. Whereas in a school system, you have a larger group and you have to fall in line. You just have to fall in line. You've got to follow suit in order to have some kind of order, because you would lose teachers right after left otherwise, because they wouldn't have control of the classrooms. I think they even tell you when your potty break is, so to speak, and when you're supposed to do this and when you're supposed to do that. And that's where I really see a lot of these schools will be forced to change. They're going to be forced to change. And it's not because they're going to be losing so many students, because that doesn't really affect the tax dollars of the school. Private schools, maybe, yes, but we're going to see a lot of changes because we're going to just see a lot of the political arena, is being dismantled as we sleep, okay, and has been, and we'll leave it to those in that department, and we'll stay in our lane, and that is to help others, to educate others through walking, talking, or walk, mentoring, and being there for the children and being an example. I remember when my youngest said, I don't know, about 8th grade, Mom, please homeschool me. She said this for a couple of years. And I looked at my husband and I said, she's challenging enough. If she starts challenging my intellect, that's it. My power is over. I have got nothing on this kid. Now, remember that a lot of these kids that have come in with different sensory dial-ups, okay, they haven't been squashed yet. So I'm saying that gently. Their dial-ups are higher, and most kids will come in with a little higher dial-up it just gets dialed down real quick by the people around them through drama, trauma, and rules and regulations and things that really snuff their creativity almost out. And we just have to be more aware of keeping their dial up and securing that and being the soft cloud around them, still giving them the boundaries, but allowing them to express and then contain and learn their own boundaries and their sensories through their own empathic, which is your number one, to me, your number one way to filter information is through your empathic sensory system.
That's it. All the energy work. The energy work in a school system. I was one of those moms that, especially in my pitchfork wielding days, that I was like, the systems are collapsing, let it fall. I was convinced, and it was only till recently, because I preach about motion picture. I'm like, it's not going to fall. I go, there's light beams in it. We need entertainment. There's advertising. So I'm like, it's another industry, Heidi. Think about it, that mindset over there. It just needs to be flipped light. It needs to, there's going to always be a need for it. So the more exposure of, perhaps things that no longer serve a purpose or no longer work, I'm kind of treading lightly without getting my pitchfork out again. Let's at least clean it up. Let's protect as many hearts as possible. I hope that there will no longer be school systems that just give children a number. They're just known as a number. The spirit of the child, the actual identity of the child, the name. Like, we know all these children by name. And I remember even being a student myself at a very huge high school, and I was a number. And it's such a different way that you get looked at, even by the staff. They see the whole you at the center. They see all of you, and they get to know the family because it's a community. We are community based. We have community events, and we do councils when things go awry. We communicate. And so, when you see a child having a bad day, that there's a new baby at home, or, something, there's more compassion, there's more empathy. And for that, it's just a little more humane. It's just it's very heart-centered, I think. I just have not even traversed the public schools out here because I didn't make that choice when we started our journey. So, but I have even friends of mine who work within the system, and they're like, I'm meant to be here. They help turn the lights back on in these children, or they help maintain and keep the light on. And they say, when I'm in my classroom, it's my classroom, and I'm going to amplify the energy as best I can. And she works in very impoverished communities. So it's like, that's an honor. You don't want that to go away. Those communities may not think to form a pod or do something different. So let's light up the public schools then. We got to light everywhere up.
Well, we do. And as long as we can understand that our column of light is what we have, and there's everything in it, and it's our whole software program, and that we can really play with the energies and work in our favor without causing any harm anywhere else, and stay in homeostasis. I know just the last week, I worked 4 days at CPAC, Conservative Political Action Conference. And I'm not political, but I had an opportunity to do it through a group I was with. And I was like, sure. And I just went there to hold the light. And every time the energy went, it was just a clue to me to completely tune in. And how do I know that? Not because I became an energy body worker 3 or decades plus ago, but it's because of all the things I learned as a child, not having anyone else out there to teach me. How do I contain my energy? How do I work with my energy? It's why kids and pets were always attracted to me, was because there was just this way of working with the energy. Even if I didn't have the vocabulary or the intellect to roll with it, I could compensate in certain ways just through my own energy field. And that is one of the things I think that we need to teach these kids, is to understand their energy fields, whether they're in small groups, and how do they go into larger groups and still be able to contain that. And that's something us parents have to continue to work on and find healers and get sessions, listen to broadcasts like this and say, wow, that is really important, because you know what? I don't handle myself very well when I'm in such and such situation. How do I contain that? We had this conversation pre-recording, and I go from 1 to 100 when it comes to electronics, and I just want to lose it and run, but I have to bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, trust in my success. Even if it takes me 50 failures, I will get it. I will get it with my whole head of hair left at the end of the day. But we've got to teach these kids by example of ourselves, of the value that we hold for ourselves, we also hold for them as they're learning to hold their own value.
That's it. And I love that you brought up the parents with it too, because as a parent with the pitchfork days, I got to go to that.
I can just see you now. Mine's been a harpoon.
I know, right? Even all the stuff with our governor, all the Newsom stuff, all these petitions flying around, everything. I'm like, all I saw was all these parents getting so overwhelmed and stressed and sick and things. But you have to surrender to this, like, sure, all voices matter, but what can you do? It's all about your light. It's all about your energy. This is you. This is the gift you have to society. You got to light it up. And again, with the way showing, the kids are watching us. So the brighter the light we can be, especially those parents, you feel like you can't homeschool, or you feel like you're failing your child, just be the best you can be. Be a bright, shining light, a human, a good human, have a beautiful human experience. And that's almost enough. We need teaching these, well, I say humans, but we're all mutants, whatever. It's a whole nother talk. But the human experience is
another video.
Yeah. And how we have our human experience. What kind of energy are you putting out there? What are you soaking in? I mean, it's one thing to take in all the information, but it's another to let it rule your mind. But that bright beacon of light, that is absolutely, I think, everything. And my point is, I went from this mom thing of sign my petitions and on the steps and holding my sign and hear me now. And people knew me back in, especially 2016 to 2020. I was just online all the time, like, to me, throwing loosh, but I thought I'm helping, It kind of did a disservice, because people didn't want to hear that. They want solutions. They want positive. They want, I just noticed, I was repelling more than people were hearing me. So I literally just amped up my light. I did so much healing work. I really got in tune with myself, and it's like pop, like this manifestation of, the positive timeline.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the programming we had. The programming we had in order to make a change was to be louder than other people, was to storm the steps of a state department, was to get in these rallies and these marches, was to file these petitions, was to email, make phone calls. It still has its place, right? But we wouldn't have made changes for equal rights. We wouldn't have made changes for women's rights to vote. And hell, homeschooling wouldn't be where it was and where it is now, because they had laws against that women had to get their strollers out and get on the street and petition. We wouldn't have stop signs and red lights. We wouldn't have, mothers against drunk driving. We wouldn't have a lot of these laws that are so critical if we don't have these patriots can go out and say, no more, no more, no more. And you'll notice most of them are women.
Right? Yeah.
Because it's that is where that righteous anger raises a vibration to a different level. But you're absolutely right. There comes a point in time now that we are changing that old paradigm of fight, fight, fight to holding our column of light. And we band together with stronger columns of light, and we band together, and sometimes without a whole lot of our light speaks the language of change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see it, because I'm very visual.
That's it. I will never not. I love that I had that journey. I'm proud of it. but it's like, I couldn't take it any longer. Like I couldn't physically do it any longer. And that way of living no longer served a purpose because I couldn't maintain that loud voice for so long. It was time to flip it. Like it hit its point where it's like, well, then now what? You got to try the solutions. And I see so many, on these journeys, and you can tell where they're at, is the pitchfork wailing around, and are they healthy, as it waves around, or how are their kids' well-being? You just see people's points of journey, and it's really when they anchor in that light and they amplify it that I think a lot of change and shifts can happen. But you do have to get to that point of anger to actually make these conscious decisions, go, okay, that's it, I'm changing this. And that's what's been happening to so many people the past few years. It's beautiful. There's the wave. There's one of the waves we are having.
Well, yeah, and it also, what was coming to mind was the snap factor. We have the snap factor of, okay, this diet is just, what I'm eating now is not healthy for me. I have got to make the change, right? Or this job is not working for me. I'm done. I'm just done, right? And then you get the snap factor of then responding and reacting in a way that's unhealthy and causes harm, which is what you can hear of a lot of the kids doing. And then there's these mass, what's going on, and harm to each other. But that is something that we have to work with and contain in our column of light, so that our snap factor is one of healthy choices, one of just saying, filled up, no more. And then become the sponsor of your own change, right? Instead of becoming a victim of the circumstances and then having to repel all of that out in a spew of anger and so on, which doesn't serve. You blow a vocal cord, it's not worth it. I'm sorry, it's not. And you know what, with everything else going on in the universe, with the energetic changes, with the people understanding what just happened in the last 3 years was unnecessary and was deliberate, that we've had more helpers here unseen than anyone's ever going to realize, that our children are really drops of us, and how much can we love ourselves to love them. And so we have so much changes going on that we have to really understand that what we do under our roof, our home roof, our avatar roof, is where we start. It's where we start to make the difference. That's and teach our children, so that when we go out there and they see other people, multiple pitchforks out, they don't run. They just can be more like the observer. They're not reacting out of a fear. They're seeing it because they've been taught at home how to contain that column of light and to work their vibrations through example.
That's it. Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah. It's actually something tangible people can do. You work on your light. I can't drag Newsom out or find him if he's alive, but I can work on me. And that can be a really big difference, not only in my life, but my kids' life.
Yeah.
Tangible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I even at CPAC, I found it, I'm sitting next to many of the political people, and there's hecklers in the back trying to get their point across. And it's just falling on deaf ears because they're listening to a speaker, and it wasn't the forum for people to be heckling. Just like sometimes it's not the forum to have the pitchfork, oh, okay. How do I take my pitchfork inward, use it as a strength, and find a different podium of some sort, different microphone, a different way to get some change going, right? But we got to see through so much of the trickery and what's been going on. We could spend days figuring out what was deliberately done against us, or we can say, okay, this is where we are right now. How do I find some homeostasis? How do I find some peace? How do I make change here? So now I can come out and start working bit by bit by bit by bit by bit out here.
Boom.
And still be okay and digest my food, not have acid reflux and lack of sleep.
Yeah. Your body's always responding. Yeah. My body that did not, it was like, what are you doing? Stop yelling at people. Flip it.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, I really just try to, now my decisions and the choices I make to have a solution-based way of going about. I just don't like altering my nervous system. I really want to keep this level of peace, and just strength and empowerment. So it's been a lot easier to discern as of late too, and keep my boundaries in check because I check in. I'm not so frazzily overwhelmed by information and corruption. I'm so know what I can do that I'm like, when things get off kilter, I can fix it. I can transmute it right away. And that's just been yeah, it's another strong skill set, but it was learned behavior I received from all that.
But you're honing it in and you're skilling it in a smaller environment by removing yourself from the anger part of it. And then now when you're out in the midst of the heavier crowds, you'll be a stronger beacon of light, you know?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have to go back to something my mom always said is children will do as they see, not as you say. And children come in reading the energy long before they read your physical language, or they even learn the physical language. They read the energies, and they're susceptible to good, bad, and indifferent. And so if you have a choice of having a child and being around children, let's just choose the higher vibration and be in loving, kinding, softer energy, so that your child can exhale, or another child can exhale from whatever they're going through in their home environment or outside of the community. Let them be able to exhale and to be able to just contain and expand and constrict and expand and have a safe place to breathe, because that's where learning begins, you know? And
the empowerment of the child.
Yeah.
To empower them.
Yes, so much so. Well, we are getting low on time here. So is there anything else you'd like to share with everybody before we go? Because you know we're going to have to do a part 2.
Oh, for sure. I'm down. I just encourage everyone to be their best selves. Follow your intuition, follow your bliss. And if you do what you love, the money will come. So trust that when it comes to, well, I got to work. I get that. But are you doing what you love? And I mean, that's just what came to my mind. But as far as parenting, be the way shower, show them how it's done. Show them how to be a good human, a good person, a good imprint in a room, a good energy imprint, and authentic too. Not two-faced. I've seen a lot of parents that behave one way in front of us and then are completely different online. I'm like, oh, where's the whole you? So that's,
and being empathic, we can see right through it.
Yes. And it's kind of like seeing people naked, you're like, oh, I can't believe they're showing this right now.
See through a lot of it. Sometimes it's a little scary. It's funny. I must be going through some auditory processing changes, because the other day I was on a show and someone said, we have a lot of shedding to do. And I thought she said shitting. And I know she said shedding, but I heard shitting, and I was going like, I kind of liked my version better. Okay. And then when you just said, be your best self, I thought you said be your best elf. And I was like, I kind of like that version too, because elves are what get things done. So let's be our best elf.
Oh my gosh.
So I must be going through some auditory.
I love it. I'm not surprised you heard that though, because I know what you can do. And a lot of my little galactic team out here are going to love that, because they say I'm the flower fairy and from the Elvins, and
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're definitely from the elemental kingdom. I am as well. So maybe that's why we relate so well. And because we're so grounded, we just kind of get it. We just get this. I don't know. I feel like I have a whole comedic team. And I always say to people, it's like Phyllis Diller and Rich Little and all these, old timers up there that were just, insane, because that is, I live my life through humor. So when I heard shitting and elves, I'm like, okay, great.
It is beautiful because laughter opens the crown chakra. So it's
It's so recalibrating.
great.
And I
Yeah.
must need a lot of it because I laugh at myself all day long. I'm telling you, people will hear me. They'll go, don't mind her. She's having her own comedy central over there.
It's
Because if I go
infectious.
to explain it, it's not as funny to them. But to me, I have the whole orchestra and characters.
It's infectious. That's
It
another thing. That's another solution. Is
is.
laugh.
It is. And you're so right. It opens the crown chakra, but it recalibrates everything. And we need so much of that right now, because if not, we can focus on a lot of the dismal things. But, as the walls close in, we can help to open them up through laughter, through sharing things with our children, through being the example to our children, through creating smaller learning communities with our children. And you know what? I thought about this too. The beautiful thing about learning communities is a grandparent, someone retired, somebody who's maybe a math major, but they work over here, but they can come in and devote their time. You can't do that in the public school systems. They don't allow that anymore. You have to have a certain kind of education, go through their rigmarole, get hired and get assigned. So it's not like you can say every third Monday is my day to be in the second grade class to help with math. You know what I mean? They don't do that anymore. So these learning communities are going to just burst with so many grandparents that can come in, and retired people like, I want to give back. What can I do? I can help the next generation and the next generation and the next generation just by giving some of my time, which is what you're doing.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're doing it with your own generation down.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what I did do in the classroom too? Because I bring my craft service in. I did a whole tea section. I have my little tea area, and I went thrifting for these cool little. And my dearest friend Heather gave me these mushroom mugs with these. Oh my gosh, it's very fairy elemental. You'd love it.
Oh,
But it's fourth grade. But we have those cold days, and these are tea kids. So I have my tea of the day, and I have a little rocking chair. I have my little rugs. It's like we imprint these places and make it cozy. And that's what I did. I'm of service, hospitality stuff. So I have my little first aid kit fanny pack when I'm at recess. Like I'm my own authentic self, and it has a place. Everybody's authenticity has a place out there. That's why we're so individual. We all bring something beautiful to the table, a piece to the puzzle. And the more we can unite and fit together, it's like magic happens. Magic.
yeah, and I'm hearing now, it's learning survival through imagination. And I know when my daughter was younger, outside of the school system, she would go to a place called Miss Claudia's in Bethesda, Maryland. And Miss Claudia had a place where she taught art classes. She would work with runes and tarot cards and Greek mythology drawing and all these things that broadened their imagination. And it was just one of the things that really helped my daughter so much away from, mainstream, to what she could have at home, to what she could have at this little learning center that one of my neighbors actually created. And it was just so helpful. And even now in her adult year, she'll go back and think of all the comforting, loving times of imagination. And they did teas like that and would go out into the yard and collect little things that they could add to, a collage of something else that was going on. So it was always working with that heart center, grounded imagination that really builds survival skills in a way, because you're surviving so much of the incoming other stuff that's hits these kids hard. So it's good that you can do that. I want to see the mushroom teacup.
Yeah, I have to
Yes,
show
I
you a
do.
picture. They're so cute. The mushroom, the tops they're all different color, but that's what makes them steep. So they fit perfectly on it. And then I also thrifted these beautiful little, they look Japanese, but look at the gold lines in it where they paint. They all love their little tea sets. They all brought their own mugs, but they love my little ones I brought. And it's cute. And then my lead teacher is a man. So in that room, we have the divine masculine, divine feminine. We're balanced out. You can see it. You can feel it. It works out really well.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Heidi, this has been amazing. And I'll have your links in the description, but if you would like to tell anybody where to find you.
I still am all over the place.
She's everywhere, you guys.
I'm
Bye.
on all socials and that's why I started my rebooted page even. I had like 360-day bans on Facebook and like, I'll just start another one. So I have multiple Instagrams, multiple Facebooks, my YouTube channel. Everything's on Linktree though. So I'll give you the
Yeah,
link.
I'll put the link in the description, everybody, so that you can now tune in and subscribe. And which reminds me, we really appreciate every like, every subscription, every comment, because it really helps the algorithms to get programs like this and what we put out and our content and our messages. And even if, whether you got value from it or not, someone else might get value from it. So if you can help the algorithms share it with other people, we really appreciate it. We do.
Mhm.
All right, Miss Heidi, I will see you on the next video, and stay put. I'm just going to end this.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.